Hi, Kim. So sorry to hear that. As you're certainly welcome to join online, as the link should be on one of those email threads. If you do come to class before Thursday, feel free to leave your homework in my sleeve on the bottom drawer, as you can just pass it to a teacher, as I will leave your homework there if you want to pick it up. Just note there is no class on the 28th. I am going to make some cheesecake. Though I'm not sure Patrick will be able to make one, as he was going to. If there is one you like, feel free to pick one up. If there is one you like, feel free to pick it up. If there is one you like, feel free to pick it up. Hey, Amber, 1 second. We are going to get started soon. How are you? Good. A little warm. Yes. I know. It's just like I was actually ready for the cold. It was pretty cold this morning, right? It was outside so much I know. I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring my jacket, and I'm like, on my plants, and I'm like, well, it's black. It's okay. It's dark. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the sun came out, and then it was like, oh, okay, well, it's still cloudy. So, don't wear shorts or anything. And then it's like, yeah. Well, I wish I had my shorts. Well, now I know why. Yeah, have you seen those pants with the zipper right around here? They were kind of popular, and those are there's a reason for those. Do you need a pen? Okay. Uh, no, you don't have to. No, you don't have to. Yeah. Um, it's different than the like yoga classes. Those ones, like, they run out of space. It's good to do that. But for these ones, come and then just let me know if you can't make it, or and if something like, yeah, Kim just let me know she wasn't feeling well, so she'll just watch the recording. A gentleman, I think 2 weeks ago, he said, yeah, he's not able to finish more classes. So Amber's online. So if you like that spot, do you prefer leaning against the wall? Because if you like leaning against the wall, you can. Yeah. There's even chairs. There was actually a group that used to use chairs. So yeah, if you want to. Sorry if it might be a little dusty because they haven't used it since COVID. But yeah. I think I'm just gonna try the wall. Yeah, try the wall. Okay. We will do our little prostrations and then we will, yeah. I mean, yeah, you use extra bolsters. Amber, hope it's not too hot for you at your space.
Keeping cool.
Are you facing south? Because I know that's when it's
No, we face northeast, so it's pretty cool actually.
You're probably in the coolest corner now.
Yeah.
Right? Because the eastern sun's already passed, and yeah, north is, well, you get a great view. It's the sun doesn't go there. So okay, you're cool. And that sounds great. Tina. It's either Tina or, so there's a student in my class. I won't say you guys are similar, but similar, not like identical. And then I thought her name is Louise, or starts with a V, and so I always seem to not connect the name to the person. So anyway, you probably heard Amber us talking about the weather. Let me just, okay, I won't have to do the recording, but we will start with the 3 prostrations. And I think the last weeks or two, I was explaining about a teacher, but I wanted you to think this afternoon, maybe about someone who isn't necessarily a teacher, but someone who can frustrate you, can upset you. Could be family, probably is. It could be a few of those. But to recognize that those are teachers for us too. So maybe pick of 1 or 2 or 3. We're doing 3 prostrations. You can think of 3, or the same person who is teaching you all the time. But see if you can honor them for their teaching as we do our 3 prostrations to start. Connecting your body, speech, and mind. Once more. Body, speech, and mind. Okay. Now there is one I'm going to, Tina, have you come closer. I'm going to come a little closer to the camera. That part of the opening prayer says, you're offering to the world. So supposedly, this mandala, I'm going to turn so it's facing Amber. You're supposed to turn your hands out, and your ring finger is supposed to represent the mountain, the great mountain. They say the great mountain, the great earth. You crisscross all your other fingers. Yeah, you got it. And then these 2 kind of hold. Supposedly, these are the 4 continents, the 4 other places you touch. And then this ring finger is the great mountain. Yeah. And so when we finish saying the prayer, then you kind of flip it, do a little prayer to do the second one. right? But that's the offering that you're offering. You're offering this to. All right. So Amber, gonna do your best. Obviously, I can't adjust your fingers, but great work, Tina. Okay, but maybe find your opening prayer if you don't. And I thought we'll do what we did last time. Read it out in Tibetan. Now, last time I kind of made sure not to kind of make it sound like a chant, but actually, if you listen to some of the recordings, you hear them sometimes chant in the beginning, and it actually has a bit of a, I won't say a melody, but you just say it along and then listen a little bit to what I'm saying, that there is a little bit of a, I won't say it's a melody, but it has a tune. That's kind of what I'll say. All right. Kind of have it memorized. So I'm going to close my eyes, but you look at it, do your mandala. This is what you're offering. When it says the great mountain, the four continents, right? This is what you're offering. But we're going to do it in Tibetan. So it goes Sashi Puki Jukshing Me Tog Tram Vira Lingshi Yende Genpa Di Sange Shindu Mite Wargi Drokun Namdak Shingla Dupar Sho Idam Gu Ratnam Madalakam Nirtayam. Little bow. So I guess it's kind of more like, as I said, not a melody, but it's more like the chanting sound. So next time you can do that, practice a chanting sound. But this next one we'll read in English. This one you do, actually, you know what? Let's do it in Tibetan. We only have, this is class 8. There's only 2 more. And so at least you can hear this one too. All right. So this one you do 3 times. Goes Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangshu Pardu Yakni Yapsu Chi Yakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Rola Panchir Sangye Jupar Sho Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangshu Pardu Yakni Yapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Jupar Sho. Once more. Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangshu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Jupar Sho. Thank you both so very much for joining me in this class today. I have done a class where it was just me. I just recorded it. And so it, even with one person, it feels different. I was like kind of looking, I'm used to teaching yoga from this spot. So I got to make sure my soft voice goes to every corner. So it's funny, I was reading about teaching and then they were saying, just visualize that there's, besides the people in your class, that there are other angels, Buddhas that have come to also listen. So I was kind of like turning around, but I don't see them. So it feels different. Anyway, I wanted to, the second course, which I'll start in the fall, talks about refuge more. But I thought I'd just give a little explanation because you always will hear this a lot, that they say, oh, I'm going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? Have you heard of that, Tina? Yeah, we just did it, right? Okay. And Amber, we've done it for all the classes you've been with me. And so Buddha is not just the main Buddha who wrote it, but there's a lot of other Buddhas who have reached enlightenment. So you are kind of taking, refuge means protection, so that you're kind of asking for protection from the Buddhas. And when they say Dharma, do you have any guess on what that is?
Buddhist teaching?
Buddhist teachings, yeah, that is definitely what it is also normally referred to. Yeah. So, and then the Sangha. Yeah. Yes. So that is kind of what I always thought it to be. And it was funny because then I was, I'm kind of rereading this, I was telling them that I took this course, but when I'm rereading it now, it's kind of like I picked up all this info I didn't remember. They actually specifically will say it is a group of people who have had the direct perception of emptiness, that experience where they sit for 20 minutes and they actually really see how our mind is creating our reality is really the Sangha. So though we are a Sangha, kind of like we're a group of people studying, the real term, what it refers to would be those who have had that experience. And, then they're further along the path. So that is what it is. And this morning, as I was just kind of putting all my notes down, I just wanted to share, because we've been talking about how I think one of the classes you first joined, Tina, was where we're talking about the sufferings, human sufferings. You might remember one of them is just, you don't have control. Things are uncertain. You'll say, like, you just don't know what will happen. Right? So I thought after in like 11:30, I was finishing doing a little reading. I was going to do my work for Open Door. And I was like, feeling so frustrated. And when I tell you this, you'll kind of go, this is, I think, a perfect example of how things are uncertain. That tomorrow's Father's Day. So I have two boys and kind of expecting, I heard my wife say, oh, fill this card out. There's already made plans early in the week about what they might do tomorrow. I get to choose. I'm going to want to choose to play tennis, but they don't like play tennis. So we might go for a bike ride. We were going to go to Steveston and try to look for like fresh shrimp there. But someone said, oh, the shrimp season's over. Anyway, so there's, it's kind of exciting. What makes it doubly exciting is actually tomorrow happens to be my older son's birthday. He is born on the 15th, and I guess every 7 years they match up or something like that. So tomorrow's his birthday too, and he's 20, but I would say he's kind of like has this little kid spirit where he really cares about his birthday. He wants to make it a big thing, and he wanted to skip work. He's coaching basketball, and and I know he wants it special. And so yesterday I bought him one of his special cakes, and I've been kind of going, should I try to go watch Karate Kid with, like, trying to make it a special day for him, even though he's 20, right? You're not going to Chuck E. Cheese anymore, but he still has that. He has a memory that it's a special, special day. And then the triple thing is that my wife's birthday is on the 18th. So usually Father's Day will fall in between these two birthdays, or sometimes on the same, and then we kind of do all three. And so even tomorrow night we have like a dinner. And so yeah, it's things are kind of exciting, right? For next week, I get to go on a meditation retreat for a week. Last night, I even kind of was supposed to play tennis. I didn't. I just wanted to rest and write the card for my son and made him a homemade card and made one for my wife and went to bed early. And this morning, got up and I got to meditate and do my yoga lots of time because I didn't have so much open door work. And so, I tell you all this just to kind of go, you'd expect me to feel pretty good, like have a good morning. And I kind of peeked into, after I'd finished yoga, I looked in the kitchen and then I could see my son kind of just had like all his breakfast stuff on the kitchen table, like kind of smoked salmon's open, the cream cheese is open. And I have to admit, it's not like I kind of want him to put away stuff, but I see in the room that he's gone into my son's room, other son's room. I thought he was going in there to play video games like first thing in the morning, but actually he was writing. So I'm like, oh, he's writing my Father's Day card because I heard my wife say, "Go write the card," and then kind of got him in to write it. So I kind of just go back in the room and I guess get dressed or something. And then I'm like, yeah, yeah. So he made a mess because he's doing something. But funny enough, I go into the kitchen and like all this is going to be exciting tomorrow. I understand why my son left a mess, but suddenly I feel like frustrated, really annoyed. Like he did leave a big mess, but it really, if you could see it, you'd go, yeah, it's fine. He went to write your card. But how I felt is not something I could control. That was the funny thing. There I felt like, oh, what a lazy bum. And then I turn around, he's finished writing the card. He's lying on the couch with his phone and just kind of like, and I said, "Oh, are you going to come back?" And he goes, "Yeah, just I got to finish." And then I could feel myself kind of getting like more like frustrated. And as I said, I can tell you this, and you should be kind of going, "Come on, Hogan, that's such a little thing, like." But and it is. I could hear myself telling myself, "Just don't worry about it. This is like, look at look at the scenario." But I felt myself getting more and more frustrated. And finally, I was going to eat my breakfast. I could feel myself so like angry. I'm like, I can't eat because I know I won't digest well and then have a stomach ache. So I went into the room and I did a little qigong and breathing, and that's where I was like, holy smokes, like Hogan, like there's no reason to feel frustrated for something like this based on it's my son's birthday. He actually has to work today, so um, he was kind of in a rush, but this is where you might have some situation like that where everything should be good or maybe everything should be bad. And then it turns out the opposite. And I thought, yeah, I'm so glad like I didn't kind of bark at him, didn't snap at him and create like, and then if he's in a bad mood, then he'd snap at me and then we'd have a fight. Last year, it happened 1 week before his birthday, and he didn't talk to me on his birthday or my Father's Day. So he didn't even invite me. He went for dinner without me. This is what I remember. So it's yeah, it just is a good example of how you just don't know what happens. As I told you, you could walk outside and you're like, oh, it's a beautiful day. You just had Buddhist class. And then someone will call you and you might be like pissed, upset, frustrated, scared. Someone could honk you, someone could hit you on a bike. And that is what happens. And I could easily blame my son for leaving a mess, but really, just because I was going to teach this, I'm like, this is an example of emptiness. This is an example of karma from my past just ripening this morning when I think there's like no reason to. Like it should all have been like fun and happy all day. But luckily I noticed it and then I didn't plant the seed by like snapping at him. And I just kind of felt it. And then, yeah, and it went away. And I kind of went, okay, I'm going to share this story because this is what I mean about like why I continue these classes. I would take them and it would help me be a parent. I know, be a partner to my wife who I would feel would yell at me sometimes for the littlest things, but it was just my karma, all my bad karma coming up. And so, yeah, that is what might happen. So you might come into this class and like expecting a good class, and then you're like, at the end of class, man, that was a waste of time. It was boring, or I should have been outside. And yeah, so you just don't know what your karma will bring up. Yet this is what is good, is that this reminder, this practice is meant to remind us of how we are always living out our past. And so, I'll tell you this, but you might forget it as soon as you walk out here. When you look on the website, there is one section called practices. Like what we're learning is Dharma. And there's certain things that you can do, like to help you bring this into your life. And one of them they call is the book. And if you read about it in the website, the directions are about how to remember the vows. There's vows that I have taken. It's like about 120 of them. It's actually another course. And it's meant for you to remind yourself to not do the bad deeds and do the good deeds, right? And so they say one way to remember them, because there's so many, is to every 2.5 hours, just check if you kept them. So they say keep a little book, and this is why I have this little notebook with me, and I divide it over 6 times in the day: 9:30, 12, 2:30, 5, 7:30, and 10. And then every 2.5 hours, I'm supposed to kind of reflect on one of the vows and kind of go, okay, did I keep it? I've been doing this over and over, and some of the vows are pretty, I'd say, easy. Like one of them is like destroying a town, destroying a country. I'm not Donald Trump. I don't have that power. So it's usually like, oh, I didn't do that. But I've also used this now to kind of remind me of like, did I see things as self-existent, like things existing outside and where I could blame it on somebody, or can I take responsibility for it? And so that's where I will kind of note on one side, like, oh yeah, I had a great lunch. And I kind of go, well, I could blame it on my wife who cooked a great lunch, or the food is really delicious. But I kind of realize, like, well, according to Buddhism, it is the karma coming from giving good food to somebody else, you know. So I brought a plum for you, Tina, since I know you're not a chocolate. I hope you'll like it. But it's kind of something I've always done, because I always like going to class and the teacher would give us a little treat. I'd be like, anyway, but I kind of go, well, that's probably the ripening of that karma that I did. And then sometimes I'll be like, this is where at 12 o'clock, I was like, oh, geez, there was a good example of not so good karma that ripened up. And so, yeah, I'll notice that. And this helps me kind of remember this thing that they say is hardwired into us to forget. I can say emptiness, and then you can look at something and you go, wow, that's, you look at the plant and go, wow, that's a beautiful plant. But you're not realizing that the beauty, if you think that plant is beautiful, is coming from your past, that someone else might look at and go, oh, that's an ugly plant. My wife comes in here and she goes, there's so many plants. Like it doesn't, but there's a lot of students who come in now and they go, oh, beautiful. I love how many plants there are in the yoga studio. So same view, but different people have different karmas from it. So anyway, I thought that would be a good review of one of the major principles of emptiness. Yeah. So last week, though, we did talk about bodhicitta. And let me make sure I got the wrong sheet. Do you remember any of the benefits? Kind of like, if you don't, not a problem. But if you remember one, shout it out while I look for my note. You can shout out too, Amber, on the headphone. That will be funny karma if I did not see my notes. Okay, there's one spot I put Kim's homework in her. So that's where Do you remember one, Tina? No. Um, there was a lot, but I was saying at the very end, yeah, like, okay, what did you write down? Yeah, anything that your good deeds that you do, the karma from it is exponential, that it increases. They liken bodhicitta, they said, to a diamond, right? I was using, there's a, to help just remember 5, they gave some kind of images. One of them was a diamond, that it's, you're not like a perfect diamond, you're not a full Buddha yet, but even a diamond with a defect in it is more valuable than other jewels. And that they say, having bodhicitta, having, the, you could say you have it just by saying, oh yeah, I agree with it. But they say the real feeling of having it will feel like suddenly your heart is cracked open. That you feel like this real love and desire to help every being. And in yoga, they say that actually it's the same thing, that there's 2 side channels connected to your nostrils, and they run parallel to your main channel. But around the heart, these side channels, they wrap around wherever there's chakras, in your, between your eyes, your throat, reproductive area, stomach, and of course the heart. But they wrap 3 times around the heart, these 2 channels connected to your nostrils. And so they form such a tight grip around that area, which is why it is difficult for some of us to open our hearts. Why you will notice in yoga, there's a lot of poses to open your chest, because this is an area that is sensitive. And you will notice that when we feel hurt, we kind of want to close in and protect. And if you see maybe some older people, they say it's osteoporosis that causes them to, but also emotionally, if they've been kind of hurt and they're protecting themselves, and you keep doing this after many, many years, how they say if you have bad posture, you'll look like that. So if over time you've been really protective and you've been, they actually will hunch over, which you see older people do, and it makes it harder to open up, be open to others, be giving. So yeah, that is one of the benefits. Another one, this would be funny karma if I actually somehow cannot find my notes. I think I can still. Yeah, yep. I like that. Yep. There's that fire. They say there's a fire at the end of great eon, which is many, many years, and that fire is really powerful, and they say it can burn up a lot of bad karma. Good. Go ahead if you have another one. Still trying to find. Oh, yes. Okay. So, kind of like chemistry changes the form of something. And they say right now, not as a Buddha, we're in a physical body. As this physical body, it will get old and die. And but bodhicitta is leading us towards Buddhahood, where as a Buddha, we have an angel, a light body, which doesn't decompose and die, which you can poke your something physical through. This is where they said, I think I remember learning in what is it, Sunday school. They said, oh, when Jesus died, he could poke something through his hand, and he had supposedly a light body, so that it was kind of like invisible. Okay, great. Did you have another one on that list, Tina, that you might not remember or you wrote down, but Yeah. Yep. Yep. That sounds good. And did you have one about the evergreen tree? Okay. Well, that one they said is that, if you think of a fruit tree, you get one harvest a year, right? You get one group of apples or whatever. But an evergreen tree just continues being green all year. That the benefits of bodhicitta continue on. Yeah. Okay. This is funny karma, but I have purposely put those notes in order here. Okay. I think I can use my old ones. Okay. So today, they said, oh, they'll share the benefits. And today's class is saying, okay, what do you do to actually get this, to have your heart crack open, to actually have bodhicitta, not just, they say sugarcane bodhicitta, which is one where you don't really have it, you just can repeat it, but where you feel it in your mind, right? They'll say this, that if it's in your mind stream, it's a belief, and this will then start affecting everything you do. So there are two ways, they said, of getting bodhicitta. One of them is called exchanging self with others. Exchanging self with others. And I think maybe we got that from Buddhism, but it's that expression of stepping in someone else's shoes. Stepping in someone else's shoes. That you imagine yourself in the other person's shoes and imagine what would make them happy. And the teacher in this class had used the example. He was saying, well, I would imagine myself in the student's shoes, hoping that the class ends on time, the class is clear, that the message is something I can take home and practice. Yeah, some example like that. And I think with anyone in our lives, our friends, our family, I think we usually, with experience, can tell what they like, right? What they like, what they don't like, what makes them happy. So this is where that is one of the practices by a teacher named Master Shanti Deva. Shanti, Shanti-Deva. Shanti Deva. I just want to give that name because he is kind of a famous Buddhist teacher, and you'll hear a lot more teachings by him. All right. So the second one is, this one seems simple, but the second one, they say, though it seems it's a 7-step process, or 7 steps to getting bodhicitta. And though it is a little more, obviously more steps, they said it may be easier to meditate on, because the first one is just one thing, and this one gives you a few steps. So if you're doing a little meditation on bodhicitta, you might be able to spend more time on it. Okay, so there are 7 steps, but the very first, not even, they say, the preliminary step. So if you do the homework, it was as, what is the preliminary step to these 7 steps? And the preliminary step is to think of everyone as being equal. Equanimity. They say that everyone is equal. And this is where, Gina, you probably heard the first class. That's how I started. I said, how are we all the same? Not just in this class, but all beings. And it's supposedly that we all want to be happy, and we all don't want to suffer. That is the two things supposedly you could say are similar to everyone on this planet. All want to be happy and all don't want to suffer. So you've got to have that in mind, see that everyone is equal, obviously, before you can have bodhicitta, where you're wanting to help everybody. Because obviously, there are people you like more, there are people you dislike. I think I shared this. They say in Buddhism, there's this, they say this truth that if there's 3 people in a room, you could say 6 or 9 multiples of 3, that 1/3 of them you will like, 1/3 of them you'll be indifferent to, and 1/3 you won't like. Obviously, if there's 4 or 5, maybe that it's not exact ratio, but yeah, next time you go into a group, see if you notice that. But if you do notice more of one set, maybe that's just who you've met so far. So anyway, but to see even amongst those ones you don't like, ones you do, you're different to, that they're all equal. That's the first step, the preliminary step. That the first step is to recognize that everyone has been your mother. And now this I've said before, and some of you might go, okay, yeah, I believe in it, but the teacher kind of used this as a way to explain about past lives again. And it actually, I think I've shared it a little bit before, but I'm going to share it a little bit more because, he says this proof of past and future lives, there's really just one main Buddhist proof. And in a way, it is quite simple, but he guarantees that for many of us, it might not completely sink in. You might not completely accept it. And what the Buddhists will say is that if you hear about something that you don't fully accept, just kind of put it on the shelf. If it really doesn't, meditate on it, think about it. And, it might happen with time that you'll get more of an understanding of it. But basically, the proof is that similar things, or something comes from something similar. Whatever it is comes from something similar. And so Buddhists will divide the world. They'll say physical things or non-physical things. So if you look at physical things, like anything around you, they say it came from something else. That Western scientists have actually proven that when you break down every physical thing to its smallest part, we'll say an atom. I know they've gone smaller into quarks or whatever, but the smallest molecule, that different things are really just a change in the composition or the way they're put together, that as a whole universe, all the atoms have been the same. That, for example, us humans, that we are made up of, there's only supposedly 100 and whatever elements that we're made of. When we pass away, those elements decompose. Some will go into the earth. Some, if you're, burn, go into the air. But eventually, the ones that go into earth may form the soil to be part of a plant that goes into feeding another human being that may give birth to someone else, so that you and I, supposedly, we have atoms within us that came from other people. That another example they use is like water. That water, as we see it in a cup, is liquid, but that it can also exist as in the air, right? As moisture, right? And that it forms into clouds, and later on, it changes into a liquid. And that if you go up north now or to the South Pole, that you see water in its solid form as ice. But that's still the same water molecule, but just in different form. So everything physical comes from something physical. That's what Buddhism is saying. But they say the mind, their definition of it is like your consciousness, your awareness. That is not physical. That is not something that um, you can divide up, that you can see with a microscope. That they say that there's properties of it that is different from being physical. That the mind isn't really just your body. If I tell you now to think of the sun, your awareness can go right far, far away and take you to the other part of the universe, to the farthest planet, Pluto. You might not have an image of it, but you can imagine a small planet far, far away from the sun. That as quick as that, your mind can go from one place to one place. So what do they say the mind is made of? It's something non-physical. And so they describe the mind as a stream. Right? And so your mind today, right now, what you just heard me saying, was preceded by your mind before you came into the space, which was preceded by whatever was going through your mind this morning. And then that's before last night. So you can keep going back and back and back with your mind. And if you do sit in meditation, you could maybe even trace to your earliest memory when you were born. So this is where they say the mind is a stream. So the Buddhists will say, well, what happened when you were born? And you could take that right to where your mother's ovary and your father's sperm met. And they'll say, at that point, supposedly when you're conceived, that your mind still existed. And the moment before they met, you still had a mind. And that mind was in your previous incarnation. That they say you were in the bardo, you were in this space after your death, your physical death, where you're looking for another reincarnation. And so supposedly how we might be reborn as a human is that we see our mother and father having sex and we are attracted by it. Then our mind decides to go there. And once we go in, we're trapped. We can't kind of leave. And that's how we take birth as, if they're pregnant, that we take birth as that human. So that is supposedly what happens. But they're saying that mind stream is, preceded by another one. So that if you accept that, then you'll see that we're, as I've shared with you, that our past lives are infinite. That supposedly we have been each other's mothers, that everyone else has been our mothers, that we have been reborn as animals, hell beings, craving spirits, pleasure beings, demigods, like the whole range. They say they piled a number of bodies we've reincarnated as it be taller than the highest mountain. So, this meditation has you accept that there is reincarnation, and that you recognize everyone has been your mother. So that's the first point. The second point is to recognize the kindness of your mother. And this one's really funny because they say it doesn't matter your relationship with your mother now, some have really wonderful, I've heard of friends with, they're best friends with their mom. They'll travel with them. They look forward to seeing them. Yeah, they're, as my friend said, her mom is her best friend. To the other extreme, where I've heard of from another person where their relationship with their mom is so far apart that once I saw that friend, and I guess I was trying to be polite, and I know the mom. So I was like, "Oh, how's your mom?" And the person was kind of annoyed. He's like, "I don't want you to ask me about my mom anymore." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." I mean, I was just trying to be polite, do some small talk, but the relationship was so bad, he didn't even want me to ask about his mom. So, that's one extreme, and there's the other extreme. And I'd say most of us are somewhere in between, where I'm at. But it doesn't matter. They're saying, the Buddhists say, it doesn't matter what your relationship with your mother is now. You simply need to remember that your mother uh, took care of you when you were like you were in her body for 9 months. And during those 9 months, she cared about what she ate. She cared about her rest. She, knew you were inside and took care of you with all the love she could. Um, and then giving birth, the greatest pain she's ever had, to give birth to you. And then from the moment that you're born, you're completely helpless. She needs to feed you. She needs to move you so you don't have bed sores from being stuck. You need to be uh, changed. You need to be watched over all the time. Um, I just brought this book, and because I don't know if you've seen it. It's called *Sapiens*. Have you heard of it? I was just referred to it by somebody, and it is funny. It's talking about the history of humankind, and there's this one theory there about how, some of suppose their ancestors were chimpanzees, and they walk on all fours, and that one day when we're able to stand up straight, um, it forced humans to have a smaller hip. And because they had smaller hips, they couldn't give birth to such big babies. And that supposedly they started giving birth to babies who are not fully mature, that their humans started giving birth to. And it makes sense because they say, well, when you look at other animals like horses who give birth to a horse, that horse can walk like almost right away after they're born. There's many animals who give birth, and then within a week, their babies are off on their own. But us humans, like, how many years is it before we can actually take care of ourselves? So, from the time we were completely unable to take care of ourselves, even till our teens, some of us till our 20s, my wife is like, out of love, cutting fruit for my son. But it is true. If he isn't reminded to do certain things, he won't. And as I was telling him, I said, you're not really, to me, considered an adult, even though you're 20 or 18 or later when you're 21, until you really can leave the family and you can take care of yourself. You can be financially independent, I feel. So, yeah, this is where our mothers in this life, love them or not, have taken care of us for a lot of our lives. And they say, some can argue that nobody cares for us as much as our mothers. So I guess this second point is saying first one was to remember that they were our mothers, and the second one is to remember the kindness that they gave us. And so this is the kindness, doesn't have to be, the friendship they offered you later on, but it's just kind of like just physically taking care of you, allowing you to make it past, your 20s to be able to live on your own is a wonderful sacrifice that they have made um, during the prime of their life. That's what even the Buddhists will say. So just coming back, it's good to come back to this. that this is saying a brief history of humankind. And I'm sure some of you have heard that one of the theories, we kind of talk about, Buddhists talk about, there's kind of like three theories of I guess, humans. One is to say the Big Bang, that somehow the universe just happened. And so this is funny because this is trying to start from this book was starting to give a history of humankind, but they got to start from somewhere. And so this is their first sentence. This is exactly this example. It says, about 13.5 billion years ago, matter, energy, time, and space came into being in what is known as the Big Bang. That is actually is a theory that many people believe, that it just kind of started from somewhere. Then the second one would be the one where there is a God, that there was someone, if I brought the Bible with me, it would say on the first day, God created Adam and Eve, that someone created us humans. And then I guess the Buddhist point, and what I think is so hard, I admit it is a little difficult for me, is to realize that we have existed eternally. And I believe that is really hard because we don't really have an example in this world of something that's like eternal. Like, even though, they do recognize universes grow, and then they said they've seen with telescope universes die, but we don't have something that's eternal. And so this is where I can't give you an example of what it is. And this is why this simple proof of that something came from something else may be difficult, because we're like, but where did it start? Some are saying God started it. Some are saying it just started. And this theory is like, it was eternal. There was never a start. And I know for me, that's one that is just hard for us intellectuals to grasp. And they're saying that when you have that direct perception of emptiness, that you will see, you will understand. But until that point, intellectually, all they can do is just kind of point towards it. But there's nothing that I can give a better example to say what is eternal. I think of a circle, a zero, as something that there's never a beginning, there's never an end. So that is, so the example that the Buddhists will say that some of us, especially in the West, find, this concept about mothers and about past lives difficult because we weren't given this. Whereas maybe in school, depending on your science class and your science teacher, this is what was in the textbooks. Something just started, the Big Bang. And so in the West, we seem to kind of, majority of us believe that, whereas in the East, the majority of them will believe in reincarnation. But if you ask them why, they won't know. They'll just kind of believe it. They'll be like, well, that's what my parents told me, and that's what everyone else believes. So, yeah. So this was the second point. I just wanted to add, there was a few more points about the future lives, that there is the one question that they can answer, is that when they say a universe dies, or solar system dies, the Buddhists will say that the mental awareness of the mind streams of all the beings, that the Buddhists do believe they're not just humans, that there are other beings, aliens, you could say, in other planets, they simply move to another universe. So that is what I heard. The Buddhists will also say that Buddhas cannot change our mind stream, which is why if they could, like maybe if they were God and they could change our karma, we wouldn't have to experience bad karma. But the only person that can change our own karma is ourselves. So that the only thing the Buddhas can do is that they can teach us. And they say, yeah, it can be like through reading, going to classes, but that the Buddhas have that ability to appear as anything. They could appear as your book, appear as your parents, your family, your friends. Some will believe that they're surrounded by Buddhas and they're all kind of there to try to move us along the path, so, and that, Buddhists do say that we can have a collective karma, that, for example, Tina and Amber, you guys are sharing a collective karma of hearing me talk. But as I said, your experience, what you feel and what you're thinking is your own. You might both say, yeah, we were both here at like 3:57, but how you felt about it, what you remember, that's your own. Okay. So that was a little bit more. So the second one was remembering their kindness. The third one then will make sense because each step supposedly is building on each one, that you kind of have to meditate on the first one. And then when you feel, okay, I agree, then you move to the next step. So the next step of actually remembering their kindness, thinking through their kindness would be wanting to repay their kindness. And I think that makes sense. If you really take the time to think about all these points I mentioned about how much a mother takes care of their kid, that it is natural for us to want to repay and help repay our moms. And there is a passage in the reading. So now remember, all of this came from that first reading, which is the Lam Rim. It is like kind of like 14 verses, which gives the path, right? And so when I tell you, oh, us humans are suffering, it does say that, but it has this really, their way of describing the suffering is this paragraph, which is actually on page 4 on the bottom. You can look for it, but maybe just listen to me. You can even close your eyes so that you can just kind of see if you can visualize this image that they're saying. There's talking about supposedly your mothers, which is everyone. And it says, they're swept along on 4 fierce river currents, chained up tight in past steeds, hard to undo, stuffed in a steel cage of grasping self, smothered in the pitch black ignorance. In a limitless round they're born, and in their births are tortured by 3 sufferings without a break. Think how your mothers feel. Think of what's happening to them. Try to develop this highest wish. And again, this highest wish is bodhicitta, the wish to free all beings. So, there actually is, in the reading, I believe for this class, there is a detailed explanation of each line. Like, these are like pitch black ignorance in the steel cage, they're chained tight. Like, it's supposed to give you this image that, they're just not walking down Vancouver with a coffee in their hand on a sunny day. They're saying, you know, all beings are actually really suffering and not knowing it. And this is what hopefully you realize, and this is what you're trying to help them escape from. So yeah, repaying their kindness hopefully comes from that second, the previous point of recognizing how much supposedly all these beings have been mothers to you, have helped you, and that now you are wanting to repay them by helping them out of samsara, out of this. All right. So that is the third one of wanting to repay their kindness. And the fourth point is giving them love. Right? And they say the love of a mother for their only child, like the love of a mother for their only child. And so now what they mean by love is what they truly want. You can say there's many definitions of love, but according to the Buddhism, when they're saying they're offering someone love, it's offering them what they want. And you could say, yeah, in this life, there's many things that we want, but really what you're wanting to help them with is to reach enlightenment, to have permanent happiness, not to have a temporary happiness. I mean, you could say, I hope they're rich and really healthy, but no matter what, they're not going to carry their riches with them, and they will die even if they can stay healthy till the end of their life, right? So yeah, offering love, and I think just the earlier points should give you this like recognition of love for their only child. Yeah. So the fifth one is, you could summarize in one word: compassion. They say the Sanskrit word is karuna, and this also has a different meaning than maybe just feeling compassion, feeling sorry for them. Compassion, according to Buddhism, is taking away any suffering, taking away any suffering that they may have. And so there's this debate in Buddhism that maybe compassion should come before love, that maybe you should take away someone's pain before you feed them. That if number 4 is giving them whatever they want, maybe some Buddhists have debated maybe we should visualize taking away their suffering first. But this is the way it is in this Shantideva, the 7 steps. Number 4, love, is before compassion, but to take away their pain. So that is number 5. And number 6 is personal responsibility. And what that means is that even if no one else helped you along this path, even though no one helped you along this path, you would help all beings. And I remember hearing the teacher who taught me the early courses say this many, many times, or maybe just a few times, but somehow it really hit home. So when she finally stopped teaching the classes, I won't say that's the only reason, but I was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do it myself even. So I went into that website and I listened to the classes and I continued doing the homework because of that. But really, what I shared in the first class is that I felt these reminders helped me. It helped me deal with work here. It helped me deal with definitely my older son, who I would easily get triggered with. I'm not going to blame him, but I just like things that he did would really like bring up feelings in me that were really strong, impatience and frustration and anger. And I knew when I acted that out, that wouldn't help change his behavior. It would actually cause more of the same. So yeah, and then with my wife, it definitely, the reminders of seeing her actions as being empty and knowing that what I felt was from my past would stop me from repeating the cycle. So anyway, that is I'd say maybe even the bigger reason why I continued along this. But yeah, so personal responsibility, that you're willing to do this, help all beings on your own, even if no one else helped you. And then the last one, step 7, would be having bodhicitta. That if you believe the only way to help every being that has been your mother, that has helped you in your multiple rebirths, that you want to help them have what they ultimate happiness and not have any suffering, that the only way you can really help them is to be a Buddha yourself. That anything else you can help them with, it'll just be temporary. And that if you reach enlightenment and you become a Buddha, you can emanate into whatever is needed to help them in there so that they can follow the same path. Right? So yeah, that is the last step of this 7-step cause and effect of bodhicitta. So either exchanging self for others or the 7 steps are the 2 ways to help bring more bodhicitta into yourself. I'm going to just look once more. I put all my old notes in this book, which makes it harder to find the other ones. But I'm pretty sure I covered all of the homework. So oh, yes, I'm glad as I flip to this page. Perhaps one of the most important, if you go back to the beginning notes, the benefits of bodhicitta, maybe the one that you should star, even above the other ones that I mentioned, is that it promises that if you have bodhicitta, you can reach Buddhahood in one lifetime. You can reach it in one lifetime. Because I've also shared with you that what you guys are learning now is what they call the open path, sutra path. That supposedly, it can be taught to anybody. You can tell this to anybody. But that path after this is the tantric path, or the secret teachings. And Buddha did share these, but supposedly they're only effective if you do practice the 3 principal paths. That if you don't practice them, then they won't work. So I can tell you that one of the practices of Tantra is to see everyone as a Buddha. Right? It might seem to you like, oh, okay, that's not so big a deal. But it is like emptiness. It's like you can hear that saying, but can you apply that to everything you do? So can you actually see everyone as a Buddha? And I can say yes, and then I'll go 5 minutes later and someone cut me off. I remember I was driving yesterday and they kind of did some dangerous move to cut me off, and I was like, man, what? And I know for that split second I didn't see them as a Buddha. So to actually have that happen, for you to see everyone as a Buddha, requires you to have that karma. So they're saying the only way Tantra will work is if you have bodhicitta. If you actually really want to help everybody, then there's probably more chance that you will see everyone as a Buddha, right? And if you're seeing everyone as like, oh, a suffering being, you really feel a connection to everyone. You see them as the same as you, yeah, that's when the secret teachings work. So that is one of the benefits that they say, that they starred. Okay. There's just a few more pages to me to check. But the actual class, bet you as soon as the class ends, I'm going to say, I found it. But I did go over this already, and I do believe I have shared it. I definitely shared everything on the homework. And it might have just been like a story or an example, which I wrote down, which I put in my notes. But since we maybe have a few minutes left, Tina or Amber, did you have any questions? I know, okay, I have my handwritten notes. Did you have anything that I know there isn't always a lot of question time. Is there anything that came up? Okay. Amber, nothing.
The first recording? How long is that available?
Well, since I sent you that file, it's permanent. As long as you have that. But you're right. When I sent it to everyone, and it was kind of kept in my part of my browser, and then only kept it for a month. So I'm glad you kind of told me, oh, it doesn't work anymore. So, but I got the file and I forwarded it. So that file, as long as you have, it is yours. So yeah, no, it said bodhicitta. One I found my handwritten notes is just think of it like we use this example of seeds and having something grow. That they say you can go to many teachings that some monks might say, oh, we're offering you initiation. And it might feel like, oh, it's really special. I'm going to have something, I'm going to have an initiation. But really think of an initiation as like a blessing, like they're giving you a blessing. And that if you don't practice, if you don't start seeing the people around you start cultivating bodhicitta, you won't be putting any water on the seed, which, if you have a garden or once there's no water, things die, right? So that for anything to continue to grow, it needs water. And so bodhicitta, this desire to help other beings really does that. And if you think of those challenging people in your life, and if you say, I want to help them, I want to help them. And if you really feel that, suddenly you will act differently towards them. You can't really want to help them and be mean to them and yell at them and blame them. You will see them and act differently. So it is very powerful, and it is something. This is why part of the homework, they say, it's not just answering the questions, like every day, have a short little meditation. So I really definitely do recommend that. When my son's like, oh, why do you meditate every day? I said, I want to be the best dad I can be, and the best father I can be. It's when I can remember what I need to remember. That I would remember, at the end of the night, sometimes I'd finish reading a story to them, they'd fall asleep, and I'd go back in, and no matter how misbehaved they were, how rude they were, when they're asleep, they look like angels, little kids. I mean, you could say everyone does. And it would remind me, and it made me reflect on, like, did I do the best I could? And so, yeah, I now understand why my mom, started Buddhism when my sister was in her teenage years, because I definitely it helped me through my son's teenage years. And yeah, no, I'm so appreciative now. He seems to understand more than when he didn't. So I will say, if I see that, that is my karma. So, but I am really appreciative that I haven't planted the seeds to see more of the same, because that was, it is just, it is painful. You know, we all have our own sufferings, and yeah, definitely. As I look back and I go, well, of course I got yelled at and got, you know, disrespected because I was doing the same in response, feeling that I have a right to, when I was just planting the seed and watering it and then having a weed grow in my garden and going, why the hell do I have a weed? But it's because I planted it. So anyway, my wish is that you will not plant, no, you'll not nourish those weeds, and grow what you truly want. So we shall end with our closing prayer. That one is the dedication. And maybe you can join me in doing that also in Tibetan. Oh, yeah. Oh, I have it memorized. I just want to have it in front of me. Okay. Yep. So this one, it's Gewadi. Okay. I'll just do it once. Gewadi kewo kun sunam yeshe zog zog shen sunam yeshe nejong wei dampa kunyi topar sho. That one has a little bit more of a melody. And as you stand, think of your teachers again that you thought of at the beginning of class, and send them 3 prostrations. Your body, speech, and mind. So thank you so very much. And for those who are watching this video later, namaste. And as you know, we won't have a class because next Saturday we're heading on to the retreat, but on the 28th, I'm back, and we will be here for class number 9, which is about wisdom. So sorry, Amber, I cannot send you a organic plum pie video, but they're very sweet, better than chocolate. So Amber, hopefully I will see you in person or online in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll actually miss that one, but I'll see you for the last one.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds great. I will send you the recording. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.